I was into sculpture and making art out of clay, whatever I could when I was a kid, and then I kind of grew away from it a bit throughout my teenage years. And then in college, I had an opportunity to take a sculpture class, so I took it, and then I fell back in love with it. And after taking the intro course, I then took the advanced course, and um, I wanted to make something that meant a lot to me and meant a lot to other people. And after thinking about it, I think making a memorial piece for the Jewish community of Pittsburgh that was impacted on 10/27 4 years ago was the direction I wanted to go in. And I knew I wanted it to be, the assignment was to make a public piece. And I know I wanted it to be somewhere important to me and important to the Jewish community. And CDS is that place, being the primary Jewish day school, one that I went to, had friends growing up, all of that. And so how I made it, it's made of concrete and rebar, steel rebar. So I chose those materials intentionally. Rebar, for those who may not know, it's the metal rods that go beneath sidewalks and beneath any kind of concrete structure to give it form. And so by choosing these materials, I wanted them to very much physically represent community. And I also wanted materials that were difficult to work with. Metal isn't easy. It's what, once you heat it, it's forgiving, but it can cut you. It's difficult to bend. Concrete is difficult to mix, difficult to pour. So I wanted something that was representative of all the emotions that came with the event. And I also wanted it to be simple in the fact that the figures are stick figures. There's literally only two materials besides a few things that were used to clean it up. It's just steel and just concrete. So I wanted it to be simple yet impactful, because not that anything about dealing with the emotions of the event was simple, but it needed to be something that just came from my heart, and I didn't want to overcomplicate it. I wanted it to just be like as raw as possible. And so when it comes to working with metal and concrete, with metal, you use this torch that heats up to like a couple thousand degrees, and you have to wear like the whole you have to eye protection, body protection, hand protection. And you weld spots on the metal to then bend it. You have to heat up certain spots at a time, or else it bends all out of shape. And so I had to learn this entire process myself. I wasn't aware with it. I had a very kind professor who kind of walked me through everything and encouraged me throughout the entire thing. But it was, as much as it was a physical process, it was an emotional process as well. Just because I had spent, so I made this sculpture pretty much last year. I wanted to make it while I was feeling everything come the anniversary of the event. And it took me about a month to do all aspects of it. But it was just as much an emotional process, because I wanted to make something that I put blood, sweat, and tears into, and I put all of those things. There were multiple times where cutting metal cut me, just like accidentally. Pieces will fly around when you're cutting it. When you're welding, you get burned every now and then. When you're mixing concrete, your back gets tired. It's physically difficult on your hands. I did everything by hand. If I could, I mixed concrete by hand. I poured it by hand. All of that, because I wanted to feel struggle. I wanted it to be difficult, because that's how it felt to deal with all the emotions that that came with 1027. And sorry. So it's something that I want you all to kind of take from this, is that art is very useful and impactful in how you can utilize it to work through emotions. It's hard because a lot of people, I thought this, a lot of people think they're a bad artist or think they're not creative just because they don't make like beautiful paintings or beautiful drawings or anything like that. And I struggled with that for a while. I never thought of myself as an artist. I never, like, I just thought like, yeah, it's something I do every now and then. But that kind of limited me for a while because I didn't realize how useful it was in working through emotional pain. And so something I want all you guys to take away is that even if you think you're not an artist, but you like to create art and you like to express yourself in different ways than you are. And it doesn't matter if other people think you're bad or whatever it is. It's what you think you are and what you want to call yourself. And you don't need to tell that to anybody. It doesn't need to be like, you don't need to be walking around saying I'm an artist because I make art. It can just be for you. It can be for other people. Until this point, until having this piece at CDS, all of my stuff I was just doing for me. I was just making stuff because I wanted to, because it was fun. But having a piece that has some sort of impact, no matter how small or big, on other people, really, I don't know, opened my eyes to the impact that art can have on a community, especially ours, where we all experienced a shared trauma. And yeah, those were most of the points I wanted to touch on. I guess it's something additional about just the piece itself is that, so it's stick figures, and originally I had wanted to have kind of more solidified figures, but then once I found out CDS was going to be the home for it, I realized how fitting having stick figures actually is, just because there's an element of childhood in them. That's how most children draw their people, and so that's how I drew my people. I still do. I'm not much of a drawer. I prefer sculpting. But so to have them, so it's 11 figures, and they're all connected, and they're all rooted in the concrete. They're, even though you can't see it, the metal structure continues throughout the concrete till the very bottom of it. So it's rooted. The victims are rooted in the city, and even though those figures are representative of them, they're also representative of the community as a whole, and just coming together through a very difficult time. I'm very open to questions, any sort of discussion. That's most of what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Eli. Mrs. Monroe, did you want to say anything? Do you want to unmute?
Yes. So first of all, it's really good and meaningful to see all of you here today. And I'm sorry I'm not there, but I wanted to be with you, and this is a perfect way to be doing that. And Eli, thank you so much. I don't know how much Eli, you know about what the kids have just this is sixth grade. Are the artists who also connected with the victims and created art, both the puzzle pieces and chairs. And I know that that's been a really meaningful connection. So for some of you, you may be relating to what Eli is sharing about what you might have thought of yourself as an artist, about the power of art. And maybe, that's something that you can reflect on also. But to us, it was really meaningful to know that Eli felt so connected to the school and of course to the community and to his congregation. And we're honored to be able to be a place where we have a space for this kind of reflection. And I'm really happy that you students are hearing directly from Eli, because you will now be able to tell this story to all the other kids in middle school and all the other kids as they're growing older, when they can understand what it is that they're looking at. So thank you so much, Eli, for coming, and everyone for organizing this.
Of course, and I know we still have time. I'll be open to questions first. If there aren't many questions, I can also show a couple pictures of the process and a video of welding, but I'll do questions first if there are any.
I have a question. Hi, Eli.
Hello.
So what is, other than obviously being a CDS student and living in this rural community, could you tell us a little bit about your connection to Tree of Life in particular? How did
Yeah.
tell us.
Yeah, for sure. So in 7th and 8th grade, I don't know if this is still something CDS does, but in 7th and 8th grade, there was a program called Minion Makers, where it would usually be a group of eight to 10 of us or so, who every Wednesday morning we would go to Tree of Life to make their minion, because usually on Wednesday mornings there weren't enough people to make a minion there, and so we did that. We davened with them and then had a quick breakfast before heading back for first period at CDS. And so although Tree of Life was never my congregation, I grew up going to Beth Shalom and to Temple Sinai at two separate points in time. But I was familiar with the people there. I knew the rabbi. I knew like Rabbi Chuck, just the community that was there. And I grew up 2 blocks away. I would walk there every Wednesday morning for Minion Makers. And I look back on it as it's hard to say like a good time now, but it was, and that's why it's difficult to deal with how I have to see it now, and just knowing how that's shared among so many people. But yeah, so I was connected to Tree of Life itself, but also just between going to CDS and Beth Shalom, Temple Sinai, I always knew people, and it just made the impact of everything so strong, which is just, it's just another reason why I'm so thankful to have it at CDS.
You have another question, Eli? I think you said.
Yeah.
In the process, did you ever feel like you wanted to stop?
Yes, that is a good question. Many times, because there are times where things, especially when you're making a big piece, where they don't go as you thought they would go or as you wanted it to be. And that's something that you have to work with. And I think that's just very representative of the emotions that come with it. Like you don't want to feel sad or angry after something terrible happens, but you can't stop yourself from feeling it. But with the physical art making itself, there were multiple points when I was cutting and welding the metal and just trying to put it all together and not being able to visualize it in the way that I wanted to was really difficult. And although I had help from my professor, but I also liked doing it by myself when I could, just like alone, so that I could focus on it. And that was good for me, but it also leads to a lot of moments of self-doubt. Just as an artist, there so many points during the month-long process where I was like, there's no point in making this piece. It's not going to impact anybody. It's not going to do anything. Like, I'm doing it for me. But then in thinking that, I realized that even if it is just doing it for me, that it's important and that I still want to do it. But yes, it's, and at any point making art, you can quickly realize that it's not necessarily going to look how you envisioned it to look, but that's okay. Like, it doesn't need to. Setting expectations for what you want it to be, like you should have a general idea, but then you should just let what happens and be okay with that. And that can be like a general life lesson advice as well. Just like the parallels between art and everything else is that things don't always go how you expect them to go, and that's okay. And you just have to roll with that and to try to fight it. Like, something about metal and concrete is that you can try to fight it. Like, you can try to like handle it, to like bend it how you want to bend it. But at the end of the day, it's still gonna be stronger than you. And so you can do things to manipulate it, like heat it up and stuff like that. But it's still like a force that you're putting onto it. And I wanted to do as much of that as possible, just for myself physically, because I just like I had so much anger in me for so long. And I needed somewhere to get it out. And being able to bending metal makes you feel powerful, in even if you're heating it up, and it becomes a lot easier to bend. Working with tough materials, I don't know, eliminated some of the powerlessness felt after 1027. But that was a long answer. But in some, yes, many points in time throughout the process where I wanted to stop or just take a different direction and do something easier. But I stuck it out because I just knew deep down that I had to, like, mostly for myself. And then I realized what it could mean to other people.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions? You have a question?
Eli, I'm gonna ask you a question. Can
Yeah.
you tell the sixth graders, what was your favorite CDS memory?
I'm gonna have to re-rack my brain for a sec there. That was a while ago now.
I just made you smile though, so that was good.
You did. It's definitely, honestly, does Mr. St. Clair still work at CDS? Is he retired?
He retired,
But
but they know him.
They know.
He came back and talked to them in celebration of our 50th anniversary.
Okay. Well, I would say mine is, it's not like a single memory, but it's like a collective like days that I remember fondly. It was, whether it was for gym, I forget how the schedule worked exactly, whether it was for gym or like an open period or something like that. There was a sports club basically that Mr. St. Clair ran, and it was me and a lot of the other kids would play flag football, and that was like on a semi-regular basis. And then I can say this now because he's retired and won't get in trouble, but he would occasionally let us play tackle football. and as a middle school boy, there's nothing more exciting than being able to do that at school. And so, and nobody ever got hurt, so that's important as well, I'm sure, for you, Miss Monroe. But so yeah, that's that. I don't remember. I think it was kind of throughout middle school, mostly 7th and 8th grade, probably. So not like a single memory, but just being able, like, having fun up on the upper field and just like playing football with friends and having Mr. St. Clair be the ref. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Eli. So we have about 3 minutes left. They are gonna go out actually see the sculpture in a minute. So can you show the pictures and the process? Because I think it'll be cool for them to see the steps, and then we'll go see the finished product.
Yeah,
Second,
yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
you want to share? Oh, perfect. Okay. That's your jam. Okay.
Okay, so this is a part of the welding process. It's,
Oh, you're
it
good.
might be loud. So this is, I used like a stencil, quote unquote, to make the head shapes to where I would heat up point by point on the metal and bend it around a circle that I had welded onto the welding table. And there are times where you can bend it with your hand, and there's times where you have to smack it with a hammer to get it like just how you want, because you can't touch it. You can't touch anywhere near the hot metal with your hands. That this is what it looks like. So this is in welding terms, you weld it till it's cherry red, and that's when it's very easy to bend. So you bend at the hottest point. So right after this, I would make a very hot weld right here, and then pull this part down to make the person shape. And then last picture, this is what it looked like before I put it into the concrete, before I built the base structure. This is just what it looked like when I welded all of the figures together. And then lastly, this is the video, which this is the first video I took of it. It wasn't completely done, but it was close. And it just so happened to be 27 seconds unintentionally, which I think was very fitting. And so this is in the art studio at the college I went to. So this was like pretty much done. I just added a few more welds and cleaned it up so that there wouldn't be sharp edges after that. But that's just a small look at what the process was. Not all of it by any means, but that was kind of different stages of it.